are here for it. We are here for it. So shout out everybody that's tapping in. Hit the thumbs up if you would. That helps. Share, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We're just going to jump straight into it. So this is the Kari Lake interview on the PBD podcast. This posted the day before yesterday, I believe. And we like Kari Lake. We're a supporter of her. We're from Arizona. So unfortunately, she's not our governor because they stole the shit. It's crazy. She was able to prove that they stole it. She was able to prove the signatures were bullshit. She was able to prove they intentionally fucked up the machines on voter day. And yet still no recourse. It doesn't make any damn sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. But this is the world that we live in. This is the world that we live in, unfortunately. But let's get into it. Let's get into it.
I feel I'm supposed I could take sweet victory. I know this life meant for me. Yeah, why would you bet on Goliath when we got bet to the haters? How they run, homie, look what I be.
All right, so we got a special guest here with us, youngest of 9 children, in media for 30 years, decides to get into politics, runs for governor. Her opponent and her had a debate with Katie Hobbs. It was the most watched debate of all time because it never happened. Record-breaking views. And before I properly bring her up, I want you to watch this video before we get into this podcast. Go for it.
Reports out of Washington say Kari Lake is getting ready to run with an announcement expected in October.
And she's going to probably run for Senate in 2024.
I could totally see you in the United States Senate. What's the latest? Are you going to do it?
She's going to do some interviews starting in, September, or maybe an announcement.
Is Kari Lake going to get into this race? These are the questions.
What's next for Kari Lake?
It is my duty to the citizens of Arizona to stay in.
You think she announces it on the PBD podcast?
They got another thing coming.
Nice. Fantastic. So we're going to stay tuned, hopefully, on this podcast. With that being said, Kari, it's great to have you on.
It's so good to be here, Patrick. We're locked in the vault this morning.
We are locked in the vault. Doors closed. Everything's in. Oxygen levels are perfect. Mic's working. We got a lot of things to talk to you about. Folks, if you're watching this, you fall in one of 3 camps. You either 100%, no matter what Kari says, you don't believe that what happened in Arizona was fraud. You believe that she lost. You're part of the camp there's no way she won. You're either part of the camp that you know for a fact she won. You're like, no, she did win. There was fraud done. Why were some places waiting for 5.5 hours and you have to go from one place to the other place? And if you were watching her election and you were following it closely, you saw her actually going to different ballots and kind of seeing, why is this thing not working? Or you're part of the undecided camp saying, look, I still don't know. I just kind of want to know the proof of what's taking place. Regardless of where you are, we're going to talk about that today. We want to talk to you also about what happened with the Newsom-DeSantis debate actually happening on Fox, which is kind of weird. And in recent weeks, Newsom's kind of gone away from the left and has gone more to the center with some of the decisions he's making. What is he doing there? Is there something going out there? You also made some comments about Kristi Noem, about potentially her thinking that she's going to be the VP. A lot of people are thinking you may be the VP. You're in a very, very important state. But also, before we get into some of these issues, I kind of want to go back a little bit with you because I think the audience needs to know the evolution. 30 years in media, right? You've gone from being a Republican to being an independent to being a Democrat to having a great interview with Obama. It seemed very friendly when he and you were talking to each other. It was phenomenal. And then you become a Republican, and then, even Obama went after you, Hillary went after you, Holder went after you, and you've made so much noise. You've had so many viral clips, whether the CNN people have come up to you and saying, hey, we'd love to do an interview. And you said, I'd love to do it on CNN Plus. That was all over the place. Whether it's you milking cows and saying, how many genders do cows have? You're very, very good when the camera's on, but before we get into some of the issues today, how did Kari Lake become Kari Lake?
Well, if you want me to go all the way back to my childhood, I'm the youngest child of a mom that was a nurse and a dad who was a high school football coach and a history teacher and government teacher, back when you actually taught real history and real government. And youngest of 9 children. We were poor growing up. Nobody really told us that. We thought it was normal to have to work for shampoo and to buy our own toothpaste. We thought that was perfectly normal. But it was a great upbringing because I learned how to have a work ethic. You know, I had to work in order to survive and to have the things I needed. So that was a great place to grow up in Iowa. And I grew up in rural Iowa after the age of 10. My dad moved us from the city to the middle of nowhere, which I call the middle of everywhere, because I think everybody should experience what rural life is about in this great country. And so I grew up in a little town outside of a little town called Donahue, which has 240 people roughly. And we lived 10 miles outside that town. So going into town meant going into a town of 240 people. But it was just a great upbringing. And so I had to work for everything. I decided when I decided to go to college at the last minute, I didn't even know how to go to college. I just said, okay, a friend of mine said, well, you should go to college because what else are you going to do? I showed up and I went to college and I decided to work my way into a dream job, which is broadcast journalist. Ended up working for about 1.5 years in the Quad Cities where I'm from. And then got called from Arizona to come out there. And I immediately, became a household name in Arizona and worked my way up to being the #1 news face and news name in Arizona. For 22 years, I worked as at the Fox affiliate owned by Rupert Murdoch. And during COVID, I kind of took my nose off the grindstone for the first time after working so hard my whole life and realized that my industry had really changed and was no longer journalism. I know some people say you just figured that out during COVID, but I always felt that even though the journalism was liberal, I could kind of keep it straight when I was reporting the news. But during COVID, I couldn't do that anymore. I mean, there was just this push to divide people, scare people, push us into our homes, destroy our businesses, and you could not speak out with a different perspective on that. And so I decided to walk away from my career. I made a lot of money. I walked away from a 7-figure contract. My husband is a saint. I don't know where he is. He's probably outside the vault right now. He's guarding the door. And
was COVID the straw that broke the camel's back? Meaning prior to that, Trump for 4 years, you must have seen the writing on the wall on the media side of things for the media bias, right?
Yes, absolutely. Go back to when Trump came down the escalator. I remember, first of all, I interviewed Obama 1 year apart from my first time going to the Trump White House. So I saw the difference in how the media treated Obama and Trump. Because 1 year later, I went to the Trump White House and it was like night and day, polar opposite. They went from being lapdogs for Obama. Everything he did, every policy he did was just perfect, to attack dogs with Trump, not giving him even a chance to do anything. So,
and were some of these your friends, your colleagues, people that you've known for 20, 30 years?
Yeah, when Trump came down the escalator, I missed that live. And one of the guys in the newsroom came up to me. He doesn't work there anymore. I call him the socialist in the newsroom. And he would probably agree that he was the socialist in the newsroom. And he was talking about how terrible this speech was at the bottom of the escalator. And it was just racist and awful. And I thought, really? I mean, it couldn't be that bad. Everyone in the newsroom was talking about how awful it was. So I went home that night, found it on YouTube, watched it, and it was like angels singing. I went, oh my gosh, finally a guy who is speaking my language and the language of the American people. This is what I've been looking for since I registered as a Republican in 1988 after, right when I turned 18 because of Ronald Reagan. I was a hero. He was a hero of mine. I was a fan of Ronald Reagan's. And then somewhere between Reagan and Trump, the Republican Party lost its way. It became the party of warmongers. And I know what happened. I think we all do. It became the uniparty. That's when the swamp reared its ugly head. And anytime anybody speaks out against the war machine, they get brought down, whether it be JFK, whether it be the attempt on Ronald Reagan's life. And here we had a guy who was audacious enough to say, I'm going to speak out against that. We don't want to start endless wars. We don't want to have a wide open border. Why is our economy not working for the middle class? I mean, he said everything that America was waiting to hear. And I noticed how the media immediately went into attack mode. And that was a bit of a wake-up call. I mean, I was always pro-Trump, but on the air, you have to keep yourself neutral. But the people, nobody around me was keeping themselves neutral. They were going anti-Trump the entire time.
Publicly.
Yeah, right. It was acceptable for the first time as a journalist to be anti a U.S. president on the air. And I thought, there's something going on here.
Did you have conversations with your colleagues saying, hey, listen, let's do our job. let's be journalists, not activists. Like, pull back the Wizard of Oz curtain here. What were the conversations like within your own media business?
It's really hard when you're a conservative in the news business because you are surrounded by, I would say, 95% of the people in newsrooms around the country in legacy media, mainstream media, are liberal. And so you know these people, you like these people, they're your friends, you work with them for 30 years, 27 years, 20 plus years, and they're your friends. There were some conservatives, and you try to kind of, when you go into an editorial meeting, you try to kind of ease into it. You're hearing all of these stories coming from a left bent, and you try to ease into it and go, well, wait, maybe, on balance, we could also interview somebody who has this perspective. So you try to kind of word it that way. On balance, that was a famous line. Maybe on balance, we should do this as well. If we're going to cover that story, on balance, perhaps we should talk to so-and-so, just to give it more balance.
And by the way, you're saying that's my interest, because I want to know what that world is all about behind closed doors. Because, if you watch this video, we've all seen this video. You've seen this video as well. This shows how, you can press play already. They're all unison on the same message they're given. Okay, we've all seen this.
The chief executive has got to be bold within reason and daring in application.
All right, murderer.
Oh, yeah.
Iowa communities.
Mid-Michigan communities.
Yeah,
We're extremely
video is
proud of the
crazy.
quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are
Plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish the same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
So let this roll, not the whole thing.
Oh, painful.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias.
Okay, pause right there, Rob. Pause right there. Okay, so check this out. This is what's weird about it, and this is kind of what I need your help with. So you got NBC there, you got Fox there, you got ABC there, you got CBS there. It's not like it's one or the other. These are different companies. How are they all saying the same thing? Are they watching each other? Is it like, is it coming from the pulpit at the top? One person is saying, these are the words to use. These are the trigger words. This is what we all have to be united on. This is what, the mob had these 5 families that at one point, the Italian mobs, they made this commission that the Gambino, Genovese, Colombo, all these families came together. And then Lucky Luciano was running it, and Lucky's the one that told everybody what to do to make sure people are not killing each other, to make sure we kind of have control of all the businesses together. Is there a Lucky in media, Luciano, that's telling everyone what words to say and what words not to say? If yes, who? If no, why are they all using the same exact script?
Well, I like the mob, comparison because there are 5 or 6 families or entities that are controlling the mainstream media. Thankfully, now we have alternative media. We have podcasts. We have shows where we can get information that's more balanced for sure. But this is a situation where that's a conglomerate that owns all those stations. That's why you might see one that's CBS, one that's NBC, and I believe it was Sinclair. And the irony of this, and I don't want to stick up for this at all because they're all saying the exact same thing, but I believe Sinclair was a little more balanced, and they were trying to say, look, we're coming in, we own these stations, everyone's gone completely left, and we want our viewers to know we're going to be balanced. We're not going to push an agenda. But in their effort to put this statement out that somebody at the top wrote, they looked like fools because everyone said the exact same thing in unison, and that clip was made. But the real truth about that clip is that this was an attempt by, I believe it was Sinclair, to tell their audience, look, we're going to try not to put our opinion in. Unfortunately, when they put it together like that, it just showed that there's one huge conglomerate that owns so many stations. And I don't remember how many they own. We'd have to count the boxes there. But this is the problem. When I started in media in the early 90s, there would be, in any given town, there'd be 5 stations or 3 stations, and there would be a family that owned one station. Maybe a company owned another one. Got it. And then during the 90s, they started getting bought up. So you might buy 5 stations in the Midwest, and then you buy another 10 more, and you cover the Northwest. And pretty soon you own, as a media owner, you own 30 stations across the country.
And that could be ABC, CBS, NBC, because you're kind of hosting their show.
And that's when things get really repetitive, because I even today I get my news clippings every day, and I'll see a story about me, and then I watch it on another station halfway across the state or across the country, and it's the exact same script. Different anchors are reading it because it's one conglomerate who owns all those stations.
And that one script is coming from the top conglomerate to say, these are the words we're using.
Right.
And it goes on the teleprompter, you just read it?
Right. But now this is the difference. When I worked for Fox, we would get those same things. The clips would come down from wherever across the country. Other stations were doing stories. They would come to us. The script is already written. But you can rewrite scripts. If you have a good work ethic and you don't like what they say, you can rewrite them so that it is different. I didn't want to just be repeating the same words as somebody across the country. You want to look at that script and make sure it's written properly. Not all anchors do that.
So you worked at a Fox affiliate when you were first getting started. You're talking about a Fox affiliate you worked at, and Fox for the longest time has been known as, Rupert Murdoch. He just stepped away. He gave it to his son, and he was in the space for 60 years. They had Roger Ailes. They produced a lot of players over the years, O'Reilly, Megyn Kelly, Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, Tucker Carlson. They've had a lot of stars at Fox. And they were known as the enemy to the left. They were known as the enemy. Fox is against American values. While we know maybe at many places Fox has the conservative values that America has, but the left would attack it all the time. And then you were on Piers Morgan, the interview that you did a couple months ago. Could have been even less than that. And you said, Fox News is now protecting the globalist agenda, right? They're now a globalist media outlet. When did you see, as somebody that's been in the space, them making that transition of just being an organization that we could go to for conservative eyeballs to all of a sudden becoming a support of the globalist agenda?
Well, that's my opinion, first of all. I think that they're a company and they have the right to run their company however they want. They used to be considered the conservative network, and now I see them as they're pushing away from America First, Trump, anybody but Trump. That's my opinion. It looks like they've gone toward the globalist agenda. This is the problem in America. We've got Marxists on the left, and we've got globalists somewhere in that mix as well, the Paul Ryans of the world. I mean, Paul Ryan is a pretty top player over there. Karl Rove is a top player over there. These are the kind of neocon guys who are into a globalist agenda right now. And so that's my opinion. That's kind of where they've gone. They're moving away from their conservative values, and I think they're moving more toward being globalist conservatives, if you can put it that way.
When you say over there, you're talking about the World Economic Forum. What do you mean?
At Fox.
Oh, at Fox, you're saying.
So before we get into, I want to know, because
but they've made a change. They've definitely made a change.
Fox has.
Yeah. I mean, how often do you see the Trump kids on? Hardly ever, if ever.
When do you think that happened?
I think that they are anybody but Trump. I think Paul Ryan hates Trump. That's my opinion. And he doesn't want Trump. That's why they put all their money behind DeSantis, and now they're realizing that's not working out.
And Paul has that kind of weight at Fox today?
Yes.
Really?
Wow.
And Carl, who has more weight, Paul or Carl?
I think Paul Ryan has a lot of weight over there. I don't know what his position is, if he's chairman of the board or what it is, but he's got a lot of power.
It's the same guy.
They got rid of Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Because he was actually, my thinking is going into this election, they know how important this election is. Think about what the world did to try to bring Trump down. They did a lot. I mean, a lot of the COVID agenda was meant to, in my opinion, disrupt an election, force mail-in ballots, because they can't beat Trump based on policy. They knew that, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be even more popular than he was in 2016. He won the most votes of any incumbent president in history. That's why they had to go all out on Joe Biden, basement Biden, and try to convince everybody that he won the most votes in history, which is absolutely absurd. And the fact that people checked their intelligence and logic and believe that is even crazier.
I mean, Joe Biden, he's going to go down as the greatest motivational speaker of all time. People that would show. But before we talk about his motivational speaking abilities, let's go to our sponsors real quick. American Hartford Gold. Folks, here's all I want you to be thinking about. I've owned gold for a long time, physical gold in many different portfolios. When the central bank in 2022 buys a record-breaking 1,136 tons of gold, you have to ask yourself why. That's what happened last year. According to the bank, of international settlement. Over 90% of central banks are working on a CBDC. American Hartford Gold will ship physical gold and silver directly to your door. You can also set up your a gold IRA and rollover money if you do have any kind of retirement funds. They'll show you how to protect your savings and retirement accounts by diversifying your portfolio. With physical gold and silver, they have the finest products, amazing customer service, and a buyback commitment. And they got thousands of 5-star reviews, free silver on your first order, 6690 below. So, audience, I opened it up and I asked a question about 3 different types of audience. And, there's an audience that says, Kari's going around talking about the fact that, she won and, it's not fair what they did. And, prove it. There's this whole community that's saying, prove it, and say, no, she lost. There's an entire different community that thinks you absolutely won and there was election fraud. And then there are, again, the people in the middle, the independent, the libertarian, the ones that actually want to say, I'm open to being yes or no, but give me some proof. So recently, this just came out. This was last week, September 21st. This is from Kari Lake's 3rd trial to begin after unsuccessful lawsuit challenging her loss in 2022. In 2022, Arizona governor race, and it continues to talk about how. Where's the page 3 here? What page is that on, Rob? Is it 5 or 6? Oh, there it is. Kari Lake, Republican, who contested her loss in 2022 Arizona governor race, is headed to a 3rd trial unrelated to her defeat, seeking to review all early ballot envelopes with voter signatures in Maricopa County, a request initially denied by officials. There was a bunch of videos saying this is not fair, this is not safe, it's risk for people's information to be out there. Then how are you supposed to know if we can't see the signatures, right? Mm-hmm. Lake previous legal challenges included claims that defective printers produced ballots that were too light or too small, and alleged misconduct in the signature verification process. However, she failed to present sufficient evidence in both trials, with judges concluding she didn't back her claims. Lake's latest lawsuit, a public record case, faces opposition from county's officials who argued that disclosing early ballot envelopes wouldn't promote the best interest of the state and could invite voter fraud and identity theft. Lake's 2-day trial will be held Thursday and Monday. So where is it at today? Because a lot of people were following it very closely. And the thing for me that was extremely suspicious is when your opponent didn't even want to have a debate. I don't if you're that confident in your argument, have a debate with Kari. Right. There's nothing wrong with that. But that never happened. So where is it so far right now with the progress you're making with this 2022 Arizona governor race?
Much like you said, Biden was a motivational speaker. That's kind of what my opponent is like.
Makes sense.
If you think us and Oz are motivational, she can't get through a sentence without about 10, that kind of stuff. And we saw that whenever she did speak on the campaign trail, which wasn't very often. And, she was Secretary of State, so she had a big say in how the elections were run in the state. We asked her to recuse herself from that, and she refused. There's so many unethical people in our government. But she knew that she would be destroyed in a debate because she did not have policies. I had the strongest border policy the country's ever seen. And now we're starting to see some of these governors who are spineless and won't do anything. Now they're starting to go, okay, maybe we do have an invasion at the border. It was 2 years ago that I put this plan out. Governors don't have to rely on the federal government to protect their citizens, and call it what it is, an invasion. Go straight to the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, and protect your citizens, protect your state when your state's being invaded, and frankly, protect the country. Because if these border state governors started doing something rather than being part of the problem, we wouldn't have New York City overrun with people here illegally. We wouldn't have fentanyl pouring into our country, killing people. So, that was her problem. She had no policy. She couldn't speak. She's just a puppet. She's not intelligent. And they just wanted to get her in office so that they could control Arizona. The cartels are fully in control of Arizona right now. The Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes, is a cartel lawyer, former cartel lawyer. And we have an AG who took that position as well. And I know there might be people out there who don't believe in election fraud, but we lived it in Arizona. And the majority of people in Arizona believe it because they experienced it firsthand. They saw what happened. Facts. They showed up on election day, and at 6 a.m. when they got in line, so excited to vote, they don't trust the mail-in ballots because they saw what happened in 2020 with Trump. So the majority of people showed up to vote. And right away, they were told by the poll workers, our equipment doesn't work in 60% of the polling locations. And how ironic that it was the Republican polling locations where the equipment didn't work. So we did fight it afterwards. We said something went wrong here. We know what happened. Lines were 4, 5, even 6 hours long on election day. So one line went almost a mile long to vote. And people were so mad when they realized it's happening again.
Hold this up, Rob, because there's images out there of it. But please continue.
It's happening again. I mean, there were people. We have video of people. We took video right away. We said, we got to go document these stories. Adults, veterans, people who were tough guys who were in tears at what happened. And they stole this election. I was polling 10, 11, and 12 points up, the internal polling. That's the good stuff, the real accurate stuff. Katie Hobbs did not win, and everyone in Arizona, and frankly, everyone across the country knows it. And when they say, prove it, I am proving it. Why are the judges not ruling against us? I believe we have massive corruption in our judiciary. If you saw the case wrap up yesterday, where we're trying to get our hands on public records, which are these affidavit envelopes, the way that judge behaved yesterday, it needs to be put, somebody out there, if they've got time, I'm a little busy right now, need to take that judge and every remark he made in our 2-day trial and loop it together, because I've never seen a judge behave that way. It was so dead obvious where he was. It was as if he was co-counsel for the defense. They don't want us to get our hands on these affidavit ballots, the mail-in ballots when you send in, because they know if we do see those, that there aren't going to be signatures. There's going to be chicken scratches. There are 300,000 ballots that were injected into the system, and this is a whistleblower who told us this, 300,000 ballots injected into the system with no chain of custody. Every time you mail in a mail-in ballot, there is a tight chain of custody. You can tell where that ballot came from. Now, nobody knows where you voted or who you voted for, but they know where that ballot came from. 300,000 with no chain of custody in the Arizona, Maricopa County 2022 elections. That wasn't enough to win, to give Katie Hobbs the win, so they had to sabotage Election Day. The most egregious thing we saw when we finally got our hands on the system log files, which is basically data, lines and lines of data that show everything that happened in the election in Maricopa County, and we had our analysts start looking through it, was, what are these 3 days of testing that were done? And we noticed in the 3 day of testing, a lot of failures, very high failure rate, 60% failure rate of the machines, 59%. So we dug in a little further and we said, okay, this is interesting. They did their testing, the required by law testing, on the 11th of October. They brought the cameras in, the dog and pony show, and we found out that when they did that official testing, those were on spare machines that they weren't even using. They then rolled the spare machines back, they don't use them, and over a 3 day span, the next week, they perform testing illegally, no observers, no Democrat, no Republican, no media. They crack open the seal on these machines. They pull out the memory card, put a new memory card in, and then they start testing it over a 3 day period. And they get 60%, 59% failure rate, 59% failure rate. It looks like a dry run. They wanted these machines to fail. Then they took those machines and they rolled them out on Election Day. And these people who tell me not to fight this is ridiculous. We can't have our country run with elections like this. We can't. If we don't have fair elections, we don't have a country. And our elections are theater to make us think we have.
Which is why we don't have a country. That's just gone. Shit is gone. We do not have fair elections.
Kari, let me ask this. So, first of all, Tom, question for you and anybody here. In the history of elections, governor, anything that's governor, Senate, Congress, president, any of those levels, has there ever been fraud where the person who won a year, 2 years, 3 years later, it came back and showed that this person cheated and won, and then what happened to that person?
We had that happen in Arizona before. 100 years ago in Arizona, I think it was 1916, there was a contested governor's race. And the one governor sat in office for a year, and the courts finally ruled that that was not the legitimate governor, and they put the other guy in. This happened in Arizona. You got it there.
Is that the precedent for why you keep pushing this? Meaning,
well, I keep pushing it.
Meaning it's happened in Arizona before, so there's precedent. So This is sort of a motivating factor to
That's
keep
one of the
fighting it.
cases that we cited in our original court case. But I'm fighting this because I want the people to know that our elections are not reliable. They're not fair. They're not perfect elections like the officials
You know why I'm
say
asking
they
a question? Here's why I'm asking a question. Has there ever been any outside of that in the recent years in any state?
Actually, in smaller elections, there have been. I think there's a county in New York where they deemed that the county just was not run. The elections weren't run on the up and up, or they
How
had
recent
two.
was that?
Oh boy.
Yeah. You know why I'm asking this question? The reason why I'm asking it, were you going to say something, Tom, or no?
Yeah, I think you go back to Kennedy Nixon and the investigators that were used by the Republican Party. This is West Virginia. And they went in and they absolutely had them dead to rights in West Virginia, but it was Nixon who said, for the good of the country, we shouldn't contest this, because they knew, but they didn't have like a stack of facts that Illinois was carried, right? They knew what happened in Illinois. Yeah, absolutely. And but West Virginia, you look at how close that election was, as close as Gore W. Bush, that election.
But you know why I'm asking this question? I'm asking this question for a couple different reasons. One is, would we want an audit to find out exactly if there was any fraud? And if yes, okay, if they have a case in one state that happens, then another state wants to do it as well, and another state wants to do it as well, and all those legal fees that you got to spend in it. Maybe they don't want to do it because they want people to trust in the system. So they're like, look, whether they cheated or not, it's done, guys. Just move on. We don't want the American people to lose trust in the voting system. So let's just say in my mind, I'm just kind of processing it to see why are they so worried about this. But okay, fine. Let's say that's one of the reasons. Number two, let's look at solutions. So if you are in there, whether it's White House has influence to be able to fix the elections so people can trust in it more, or state-wise, how would you improve the system of electing?
Well, it really isn't the federal government's job to improve our elections. It's state by state, and the state legislature and the Constitution is the one that controls the elections. And we need to change laws somewhere along the way. When I started voting, I'm dating myself here, but back in 1988 when I started voting, we had election day. And our Constitution in Arizona calls for election day. And somehow it's become election month, 27, 28 days of voting. And then they count for up to 2 weeks until they get the result they want. The longer you drag out the voting process, the more there's areas to throw fraud in. And they've complicated it. It used to be a paper ballot. You showed up in a small precinct where there were 500, 700 people on the voter roll. And it was really easy to determine if somebody's like, wait a minute, you're not on the voter roll. You need to go to your precinct and vote. It's easier to control, make sure that there's not fraud slipping in. But along the way, I believe they realized that they can't win these elections because they have terrible policies that are not for the American people. And they've added layers of complication. And for somebody, so I think paper voting one day, and you count right there at the precinct. That way the count comes from, if you're in precinct 27, it comes from that precinct. At the end of the night, it's counted. You send the results to Central. They tabulate all of them. They add up all the different precincts, and we have the winner that night. This is how elections have been run.
How did that happen, though? How did it? I wouldn't
Why
be okay
did it get
with
complicated?
I wouldn't be okay with 27, 28 days. I wouldn't be okay with it.
This is what we have right now.
But how do we have that? How do we get here, though?
Was that COVID? Was that because of COVID that they were like, listen, people have to?
How have the American people been okay with it taking this long? Like, I can see Democrats being like, well, you guys just bitch a lot and you guys complain a lot, Republicans, because as long as Democrats win, they don't want to find, like, it's working.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? So there's not a problem for Democrats, right?
Not at all.
Okay. Then I can see Republicans being like, well, it's not the guy I wanted anyway, so I don't give a shit. Okay, so there's some that are rhinos and there's some that are establishment. Yeah, so it's okay. Yeah, he lost in your face, and great. Then there's the other community that's going to be like the independents saying, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm comfortable with this. I don't trust this. I want to know whoever won to win. So my vote matters. So people don't lose credibility and, well, my vote doesn't matter. Why should I vote anyway? They're going to manipulate it anyway. So I want to know, the people that actually want to know for the vote to count, they're not okay with it taking 27, 28 days. How did they get to that long of a time?
I believe it really has been because their policies are so bad. This is an attempt to make sure we have people in that are controllable. I mean, 27 days of voting, early voting, and you look at what happened when any state goes full mail-in ballots. Mail-in ballots really are not secure ballots. Would you put $500 in an envelope and put it in the mail right now?
Post office, no way.
No,
absolutely not.
But you're putting your vote, and now they're saying there's
If it's
absolutely no
certified
fraud.
mail, though.
If it's certified, but it's not, unfortunately. And so any state that has gone full mail-in immediately starts to turn full left. Look at Washington State, Oregon. I mean, California is going that way. When you start seeing a loosening of the voter laws and procedures, immediately the state starts to go toward the left.
I have a
when
question.
you see laws that are adhered to, that's when you see sanity, and you know that you've got one vote, you have one vote, I have one vote. And why should America care about this? I've been all over the country. If you're in a state, Oklahoma, for example, I've been in Oklahoma. Pretty red state. I believe all 50 states need to improve their elections to make sure that they are reformed and secure, so we know that one legal vote per legal voter. But why should Oklahoma care about Arizona's election fraud? Because even if your state's running a pretty decent election, if Maricopa County, one county in Arizona, runs their elections with corruption and fraud, your vote doesn't count. Your vote for President Trump, because we know, I believe the country knows President Trump won. Some people can't admit it, but your vote doesn't count if they're watering it down with a bunch of phony fake ballots in 3 or 4 counties across the country. And look where the world is going, because we had that fraudulent election in 22. We have Joe Biden in the White House. We're on the verge of World War III. It's like, wake up, people. We are on the verge of a war. Our economy is in the toilet. Our borders wide open. Our country's being invaded. How many more, alarm bells do we have to go off before people go, we've got to deal with our elections?
You have to look at the history of the precinct system in American voting. Precincts used to be fire stations, schools, civic centers, and they were small. Precincts were small for 2 reasons. Well, a lot of small precincts allowed people, back before we had 2-income housing, everybody driving to work, moms working. And what happened was you could walk to your precinct. You walk to your fire station, your school, everything, you could vote. Small precinct gives you high control, and you make a phone call. Okay, here we are. Here's the result: 62, 31, 14. And the precincts dialed it in. What happened was, on the mail-in ballots, it started with, there's a variety of things, and then they jumped on that because there's cracks where they could leverage it. It started with, wait a minute, shouldn't our overseas military get to vote in their elections? Well, yeah, national elections, sure they should. Okay, well, let's get them an absentee ballot. And that's where it was. It wasn't mail-in ballots. It was absentee ballots. Well, yeah, let's do that. Well, then people started retiring, and they adapted it. They started adapting, the voting rules. Well, maybe they're shut-ins or people that can't make it to their precinct. Let's give them an absentee ballot. And then that was the crack where they said, hey, you know what? You know what we could do? Vinny, what if we just go to the old folks' home and just harvest the ballots?
Which they did in Wisconsin.
That's
did you see the saddest video in the whole world was these people who they don't even know their loved one's name, and they voted. They can't even feed themselves. They can't do anything.
Correct. And let's go look at one of the first motions in Gore versus Bush in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. The Democrats wanted to disqualify the military vote that was absentee that was coming back into Florida because there were servicemen in Jacksonville, Marine Corps Air Station that's down in Miami. They tried to disqualify those votes. And so you can see what happened. And Pat, we went down the slippery slope. slope where, hey, just mail-in voting. Let's make it easy for everyone. But there used to be reasons to let the military, to let shut-ins have an absentee ballot. Absentee ballot became mail-in ballot. Mail-in ballot became just the wild, wild west where Vinny and I could harvest an old folks home and then have them vote any way we want. Or because now they're bringing them in for old folks home, Vinny and I could just walk in at midnight with 10,000 ballots and say, hey, more mail-ins. And they wouldn't even question us. In the old days, they would say, wait, are these absentees from military? Wait, where's this all coming from? Now you see the cracks formed, and there is the fraud.
And really quickly, what Tom just said, the precinct voting was done at the fire station or the mainly churches and schools. I mean, I could walk a block or two to mine before. What closed during COVID? Churches and schools. I don't think that's coincidental. And what else happened? Mass mail-in voting. This is it's really obvious when you start digging into it, what's really going on.
Whoever was the mastermind behind the strategy, I want that person on the podcast.
And Kari, because I'm a pattern guy. I look at patterns. Other people call me different names, but I'm a pattern guy. So like in your case, your opponent doesn't want to debate as if they already know everything's set up. It's really weird, right? The machines don't work. People are showing up. They have to go to different places. Pretty weird. The person that you're going up against oversees the entire election. That's really, really odd for me. Then that umbrella that Pat was talking about, all the media makes you seem like you're this crazy election denying kook. The judges seem like they're in their back pockets. Then we go back to the Trump situation. I see, and it's already starting to happen with him because Hillary already is in front of the news saying what? Putin is going to cheat.
She's saying the 24 election is going to be rigged. I'm like, wait a minute, indict her.
Yeah, she's a cheat. Yeah,
you play the clip.
Yeah, and then Kari. And then already Fauci, Biden, Bill Gates, they're all warning us about pandemic 2, which is a perfect stay at home, stay in the basement. You know what I mean, for Biden, so everybody to vote. Do you think, Kari, if you had to guess, do you think that they're gearing up for something for 2024? Because it already seems. I mean, Trump is kind of passing Biden by like 10%. If you had to guess, Kari, do you think something? Because I mean, if you think about it, a virus coming out of a country that we own the lab comes out, keeps everybody at home. You have to mail in your ballots. Joe Biden doesn't go in front of a camera. If he does, it's in front of like 20 people. Do you think that something wild is going to happen to keep everybody at home to have that same process happen?
I don't know. I'm almost thinking that they know they can't cheat at the level they would have to defeat Trump, and that's why they're trying to keep him off the ballot in numerous states. They've got, sadly, Republicans, people with an R behind their name, trying to keep a man of the people that the people want off the ballot now, because that tells me, okay, why not just put them on the ballot if they could cheat to that level? The people, by the time the election rolls around, are going to be so fed up with the way things are going that I even believe we're moving towards seeing Democrats, disaffected Democrats who are waking up to the fact that their party is no longer the Democrat Party, who are going to vote for America First policies. The media will say they're extreme policies. He's an extremist. You know, these MAGA people are extremists. Make America great again is extreme.
Yeah.
Wanting a secure border, wanting to make sure your kids and my kids don't get their hands on fentanyl. I don't know. I don't think that's extreme. I think the opposite is. If you're okay with the border being open, that is extreme. If you are okay with the United Auto Workers not having an industry to show up to work for because they're going to ship our auto industry over to China to make EV vehicles and force you into an EV vehicle against your will because they're not going to have, this Green New Deal as such a ridiculous thing, that's extreme. If you think it's okay to talk to our kids when they're 6 years old or at a doctor's appointment, we just found out in Arizona at the nursing school, U of A, they're teaching nurses to, at age 3, in the wellness check at age 3 for a little one, to ask them about their gender identity. This stuff is extreme. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to be ashamed.
At 3 years old.
At 3 years old. Ask if they feel like they're really a girl or...
I want to be a cowboy. Is that my identity?
I want to ask you...
I mean, my son wanted to be a dinosaur.
I still want to be a dinosaur. I actually have a very direct question to you. I actually believe that you're actually a very strong, attractive candidate. I think you have a winning message. Everything you've talked about, especially regarding immigration, the border, the wall. You're in Arizona for the past 30 years.
Plan. Not many people had a plan to deal with the homeless
You have a lot of good things that you say, especially everything you talked about with the woke agenda, the LGBT, the trans. We've talked about that on the podcast infinity times.
My bad.
You have a platform.
Even hear
I
me.
believe that you also have what Candace Owens called the it factor. You're media savvy. You're attractive. Your hair looks great today. Congrats, even with the headphones on. You have a lot going for you. Why not focus on that more? Meaning, if you Google Kari Lake, and if you look at any YouTube clip, you are the almost face of election denialism. So my question to you is this. You have so much going for you. Even like SNL does parodies of you. My question is this. We saw what happened in 2020 or 2022 during the midterms. Any Trump-backed candidate that doubled down on election denialism did not win. You came dangerously close to beating Hobbs. Why do you think that election denialism is a winning message? Because at the end of the day, if you don't win, you don't win. Like, Trump's not reversing the 3 years ago election. It doesn't seem likely you're going to reverse this election from 2022. You have so much going for you, so many positive qualities. Why not just say, listen, I take my ball, I lost, I'm going to crush it the next time and win, rather than double down on the loss? Why not?
Do you guys see this app on my phone? It's called Audible. There's actually a much better way in 2023.
Well, for starters, I never got into politics to have a big political career. I mean, when people say you're going to hurt your political career, I frankly don't give a damn about a political career. And we need to get people who are in this to have a political career out of politics. And it was not just an unfair election, it was a fraudulent election. I don't walk away from a noble fight. And if I were to walk away from what they did to the people who stood in line and couldn't vote, almost 250,000 votes were rejected on election day. Almost 250,000 votes, and 75% minimum were voting for me. So I look at those people, they've reached out to me and said, please fight this. Don't walk away from this fight. If I don't stand up and fight for them, they don't have a shot at fighting this fraud in the elections. I'm a mom first and foremost. If you have a problem in your household, and I think, how many of you are dads? Okay. If you have a problem in your household, if you have a problem in your marriage, if you find out your teenagers are getting into something dangerous and you need to deal with it, you don't put your head in the sand and go, well, let's not look back. Let's look forward. Things will get better. Things aren't going to get better if we don't have fair elections.
But Kari, with all due respect, that's not what wins elections. What wins elections, whether it's Trump in 2016, or whether it was Obama in 2008, whether it was George W. Bush in 2000, is let's do something great to make America great again. Let's look to the
Absolutely.
future. The future looks bright, as we say. Sell me the dream. Sell me the dream.
And I believe
if
I
you
did
sell,
that.
hey, 3 years ago this happened, last year this happened, it's been proven that it doesn't necessarily work.
I don't
so
know.
If,
Well,
if
you're turning a noble fight into a platform decision.
I'm not.
And
I'm
a
saying
little
that
incensed by that.
she could
This is
win.
not a platform decision. This is a noble fight.
Oh, excuse me, Mrs. Lake. Let me ask Kari her question.
Whoa.
So I'm asking, at what point?
The man who never interrupts. The man who has got.
You know what, Adam?
you
I
asked
agree
the
with.
question,
I
let her
agree,
respond.
I
That's
agree
what
with,
I'm asking
I agree
you.
with parts of what you said, and I look back at our campaign, which is when I got into politics. I don't know how I ended up in the middle of the political world, but I did, and we had all that. My number one platform issue was not elections. It was we've got to secure this border.
Totally agree.
And these governors aren't doing anything, and they're failing at their duty to the people. I had a great policy on education, and I'm again dating myself here, but we used to have trade school training in our high schools. Got rid of all that, and now we're doing DEI and CRT and trans agenda. We need to get our kids, especially our boys, ready for real jobs out there. I had
Totally
great
agree.
policy on that. Great policy to deal with our chronic street homelessness, and I can go down reshoring manufacturing to Arizona. With our proximity to Mexico, it's a great opportunity to grow and expand the economy in Arizona. Excellent policies. And they knew that, oh man, this woman means business. She's going to shut down our illegal activity, our trafficking of drugs and children and human beings. And they had to stop me. And so we have to deal with what's happening in our elections and reform our elections. And this is, you're reading Google, and all of these articles are written by a slanted media that has completely gone off the hinge propagandist. And they're writing all these and saying she's an election denier and nobody's for it. I'm out there with the people every day. I have been all over this country, everywhere I go, even in Portland, Oregon. I think I got stopped more in Portland, Oregon. People saying, thank you for what you are doing. You've got to fight for elections. We don't have a state anymore. They're ruining our state, and we can't vote our way out of it anymore. We've gone full on.
Though. That's kind of the crux of the issue, is the fact that the propaganda machine is so strong. People like, I think his name's Adam that just spoke. Propaganda machine is so strong that they believe that it's a losing issue. Just like they tried to convince Trump that running on the border and immigration was a losing issue. It's a losing issue amongst the propagandist. I don't know what's going on with the stream there. But the propaganda is so strong to say that this is a losing issue. It's not a losing issue at all. It's a winning issue, just like immigration is one of the reasons Trump won in 2016. The media said it wasn't an issue, but it actually is amongst the people.
On mail-in ballots, they're destroying Portland, they're destroying the entire state now, and we are stuck and we're held hostage by rotten elections.
And I want to say something here, okay? I want to say something here. I fully, I asked this question of Rudy Giuliani, so you know where I stand. We had this live debate, and I'm asking Rudy, you keep talking about fraud. It's not an attractive thing to do. Here's what's going to end up taking place. People want to know, what is the plan? Great. But I actually have a question. You ever watched the movie Flash of Genius?
No.
It's the story of Robert Kearns. Okay, so who Robert Kearns is? This is the guy that invents the intermittent wiper because he had a hard time watching when it was raining, so the wiper wasn't fully clear.
I love that guy. I didn't know that was him.
That's him. So
intermittent wipers are one of the great inventions.
But I got to tell you, he may end up being your biggest source of inspiration. I think you got to watch the movie. Let me explain why. So this guy, Robert Kearns, invents it, goes and takes it to different car companies. Okay, he takes it to Ford. He takes it to, this is the movie. He takes it to Ford. He takes it to Chrysler. What these guys do is he gets a patent in 1964. He patents this in 1964. Ford sees it, says, this is an insane idea. But guess what Ford does? Ford takes it and says, you never came up with this. We did it ourselves. And they said, there's only 4 pieces to this thing. This is not a big deal. We did it ourselves. And in court, there's a scene where he's telling the judge, says, Judge, have you ever used the word book? Yes. You ever used the word philosophy? Yes. You ever used the word I have? Yes. How come you've never written one of the greatest books of all time that Charles Dickens did? He has access to the same words you did, but he knew what words to pick to put together to write one of the greatest books of all time. He says, it's not about the pieces being this simple. I found the right 4 pieces to use to put this together. Watch what ends up happening. This is my, he ends up fighting Ford and Chrysler, goes to court, loses his marriage, loses his kids, loses everything he has. Eventually, Ford offers him $30 million. And by the way, this is not $30 million of today's money. This is $30 million of 60s, 70s money. It's real money.
Wow.
You know what he says? He says, no. He says they gave him $30 million to say he was at fault. Oh, wow. Ford wanted to give him $30 million to go publicly and say, I was at fault. He says, I'm not doing that. You ruined my life. I invented this product. I'm going fully on with this thing here. He ends up winning. Instead of getting $30 million, he only gets $10.1 million, but Ford had to publicly say they were at fault. Wow. Chrysler later on had to end up paying him around $18.7 million, and his story became public. I think for somebody to prove there is fraud, they're going to destroy your life, okay? Mm-hmm. And I think someone has to do it, because I think it is inspirational for someone to take this kind of a risk. For the longest time, this guy's own family didn't believe him. There's scenes of his kids questioning Dad, why are you doing this? We're losing everything, because he had to use money for legal fees and all this other stuff. You're crazy. You're nuts. You're this. I believe that I don't have all the intel. I don't know what happened there. I'm extremely suspicious. Extremely suspicious. You need 27, 28 days for what? My kids can count up to 100,000. You can't count it in 1 day or 2 hours or 3 hours with all the technology that they have. The person doesn't show up to debate. So all I'm saying is, I think if this is truly something you want to go fight for, I hope you go all the way through, because I think there is a reason why no one's ever done this, because they're going to do whatever they can to destroy your life. They're going to do whatever they can to destroy your life. But whoever ends up proving it, the rest of the American people will be protected for decades and centuries to come, because they're always going to go back and say the Kari Lake case, the Kari Lake case, the Kari Lake case, just like this guy here, Robert Kearns, who did what he did. So, by the way, I don't think it's going to be a fun fight. I think it's going to take years. I don't think it's going to be solved in 3 to 6 months. I think it's going to take a different president to come in, to want to have to investigate this, to want to encourage that we want to change the ways we're handling elections, to appoint different people that can investigate, that are private, not just public. But all I'm saying here is, so you're making a very good point. Yeah, it's probably not an attractive thing to campaign on if you want to win public office. So here's a question for you. What's more important to you?
He's going to ask her, what's more important, proving the election was stolen or winning a new election? She's going to say proving it.
Becoming a senator or becoming a governor, and none of this stuff is ever proven, or you never become a senator, you never become a governor, you never become a VP, but in the next 3, 5, 10 years, we finally find out there was fraud here, and for anybody else in the future, that runs is protected. Which of those two is more important to you?
I think you know the answer.
I want to hear it.
The latter. And I'm never going to stop fighting. I'm never going to stop fighting for honest elections, reform in our elections. We've walked away from far too many fights, and that's how we've gotten into this position. And sadly, the Republicans have walked away. That's why President Trump is so loved. It's like, finally, we have a fighter. Is he perfect in every single way? No, and I don't think any of us here or anybody listening is, but he fights for us every day. And I will fight. As I've said, we surrender so many hills. We're on our final hill. I'm going to the top of it, and if they want to stop me, they're going to have to go up to the top and take me down. I don't care about money. I don't care about even getting credit for saving our elections and reforming them. If I go to my grave and I know that my children, and at that point, hopefully great-grandchildren, maybe great-great-grandchildren, have a republic to live in with a constitution that is adhered to, with a Bill of Rights that actually exists, I will be the happiest human being, even if I'm penniless.
Even if you're penniless.
What good is this?
Are you seeing what they're doing to Rudy Giuliani?
Oh, I was just with Roger Stone last night.
Do you know who?
They're coming after everything I have right now. They're suing me for defamation for having the courage to speak out about our elections.
They're not going to stop.
And they won't stop. But that's okay. What good is that money if we lose our country? So here's our choices. What you're saying right now is you could just be quiet and keep the money you have and all of that. But then we're going to be a year out from now in I believe, a communist globalist country. We're losing our American freedoms. We're losing them every day if you haven't noticed. And what good is that money living in that if we don't have our freedom? And so we need a few people who are freedom fighters right now. And, as long as I have enough to eat, I'm okay with that.
I don't
eat that much.
I don't think the dirtiness has started with you yet. I think they're banking on you stepping away from this, and I think they're banking on you quitting on this and moving on to Senate and allowing Senate to be the next distraction. Because when they look at people like you, and what I mean by people like you is the fighters, you're very annoying. You're very annoying in the way when you fight somebody that's
fly in the ointment.
You're pesky. You're pesky.
A true believer is a very annoying opponent. Mm-hmm. Very annoying opponent. You like to face people that can be bought with women, with girls, with recognition,
They tried to buy me.
Books,
they tried to bribe me.
Right.
Came to my door and tried to bribe me.
Who did?
I'm not going to name names because I don't. And people say, why won't you name the person? And I said, because I don't want to shoot the messenger. Mm-hmm. Came to my door, called me one day, and this was back when I was finishing up my book, which is called Unafraid. I highly recommend it. And said, can I come over? I got to talk to you about something, but it has to be in person. I can't do it on the phone. And I thought, okay, that's a red flag. What's going on here?
Was this a person you knew already?
It's a political figure. That's
big name.
That's known. I think in some circles, yeah. And showed up and said, look, we want you. This is probably March. So our case was, I think, in the appellate court. We were, continuing.
March of 23.
March of this year. It might have been February.
Meaning this is several months after the 2022 election.
Yeah, I was still fighting. I was just wrapping. I think it was March because I was just finishing up the book.
Got it.
And doing some final edits on it. And I was trying to pack to get out the door to go to CPAC. I was going to be delivering a speech at CPAC. And person comes over, sits down, and says, got a great offer for you, coming from some pretty powerful people back east. Great position, great title, huge salary, position on a board. And all they want is for you to not run again in this next election, just one election cycle, 24, not be on the ballot. And I was just, shocked that this was, I'm thinking this is the kind of stuff happens in movies, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, why don't you go back and tell them that I'm not motivated by a job. I'm not motivated by a powerful position. I'm not motivated by money. I walked away from that. I truly walked away from my dream job because we're losing our country. So the conversation went on and tried to convince me, just one, sit one out. You can always get back in. I don't think they want me on the ballot in any position and Trump, because if my movement comes out to vote and Trump's movement, all of the rhinos and globalists or whoever they're going to put in are going to go down. And so I shooed the guy out because I said, I've got to pack. I'm finishing up my book. As he's leaving, he turned around. He said, what would it take? How much would it take for you to just not run in 24? And to be honest, I was so consumed with writing the book at the time. I was finishing up, travel plans to get out of the house. I wasn't really, people had talked about me running for Senate, and I've given it a lot of thought. And if they're willing to steal an election from the good people of my state to bring me down and get me out, I'm not giving them that. That gives them the victory. And I'm glad that Trump is willing to stay in as well, because they took it from him. And if he were to say, look, it's too hard, they might ruin me, they might take all of the money I have and leave me in ruins. If he would have done that, then they win.
Is this a person that's part of the establishment right?
I really don't want to give too many.
Here's why I'm asking the question. Okay, but you have proof. Like if they came to destroy your life, you have proof of this situation taking place.
Yes, but the person who delivered the message was not the person behind the offer.
But the person told you who was behind the person of the offer.
Just said it was powerful people back east.
And east as in New York or DC East?
I'm thinking the swamp.
East. Okay, I got you. So where I'm going with where you're at right now. So you're saying you would rather fight for your beliefs on what happened and give up every other possibility of what you could do to go prove.
This is why we respect her. This is why we respect her. And even though I'm against women in leadership roles, because I'm an asshole, we like Kari. We like Kari. She's got balls, even though she's not a tranny. She's got balls. And she's a fighter. And she's a fighter.
That you were right. Okay, so I think they're thinking you're going to give up quickly. I think they think you're going to
I don't think they think that now. And by the way, there will be more lawsuits to come. We're working on other things.
In their eyes, there's been 100 of you. Trust me, they're arrogant people who they think there's been many of you, and they know how to distract people like you with other distractions, and then all of a sudden they're going to be like, yeah, her fire could, because, emotions are always high when you first go through a breakup, right?
Yeah.
So you cry, oh my God, this is that, who is he dating, who is she dating? Let me check her Instagram, his Instagram, and 2 months later, like, oh man, I wish her nothing but the best, and we kind of move on, right?
Yeah.
Only a few people are like, oh, hell no, he did me wrong, she did me wrong. Okay, so in a situation like this, for the most part, most people move on, right? They're banking you're going to move on with another run that you'll go on. That's what they're banking on. I think so. And if you choose to keep pushing to find out and get to the bottom of this, I think what you're experiencing so far of them destroying your life is 1/10 of what they can do. Just this morning, you know who Giuliani got sued by?
Who?
A guy named Hunter Biden.
He did.
Just 5 minutes before we went live,
Yeah.
Hunter Biden sues Rudy Giuliani over laptop, accuses ex-Trump lawyer of hacking. Biden alleges Giuliani is responsible for the total annihilation of his digital privacy, claims there was no laptop. So, and maybe
he just sued, I think, Garrett Ziegler for putting all of that together and explaining what was on the laptop.
He also sued the IRS. I mean, he pretty much sued his dad, right? I mean, that's
you think about
his dad's employees he sued. But okay, let's go away from this story here today. Strategically, VP, you've answered this. I've watched you answer it 40 different times, and I know how you're going to answer it. My job is right now as a mama bear to protect, and that's what I'm doing. It's not about being the VP; it's about doing my job. I may run for office, all this other stuff. Okay, so VP, you're in a very important state. Okay, and you also said to Piers, I think he needs to choose somebody to do the fighting for him. Like, in other words, he needs a flag carrier. Mike Pence wasn't a fighter for him. And that was a first-term VP, which I think Mike was a very good first-term VP, minus the COVID when he did what he did. But for the most part, he brought a good state to him. It was a necessary state to him. Mike did his part. Second term, it's about who's going to replace for the next 8 years after him. He needs a true flag carrier that can fight, go, do the part, do the legwork, defend him. Almost kind of like doing what Kellyanne Conway did. I don't think he wins 2016 without Kellyanne Conway. I think Kellyanne Conway was a rock star.
Great.
I think she was a rock star.
It was so hard not to like her when the media was horrible to her. You're
God.
like, that's when I woke up, really, frankly, with Kellyanne. I told her I learned a lot. She always kept calm.
Yeah,
she always kept calm.
She really is.
And they were being so rude to her, and she just came out looking.
I see the same with the two of you. That's why I'm asking. So do you think, one, you would be a formidable VP candidate because you're also in a very important state and you have a lot of, where the dead bodies are buried in Arizona. So if something happens, you guys can also follow up on the things that you want to do to make sure it's proven what happened in Arizona. One, obviously, if you got the call, would you take it? Two, who else do you think would be a formidable VP candidate for President Trump? I know you can't speak on his behalf, but I'm just thinking if you had some names,
there's so many things to talk about there. First, I want to go back to what you just said before this, and then I would promise I'm going to answer.
Sure.
You can run and you can do a lot of things and have lawsuits. And so I'm a multitasker. I'm a mom. I can handle, I'll never give up on fighting for your vote, whether you are a Democrat, independent, or Republican. If this would have happened on the Democrat side and Trump would have won the way that Biden won, I wouldn't be okay with that either. This is about saving America. And our founding fathers, many of them were penniless at the end of their fight to bring us this great republic. And I am motivated by that spirit. Okay, so that's that.
Well, let me say something to that. And then you can, Saving America, I put an event together in 2009 called Saving America, Doing the Impossible. I'm dressed as George Washington. My wife is dressed as Lady Liberty. I have a 40-foot Mount Rushmore on the stage. And the whole idea was we're going to save America. That was the entire campaign. So we started a Facebook page. in 2009 called Saving America, and I had a radio show on KKLA, KRLA called Saving America back in 2009, 2010. That's the guy right there. That's the Middle Eastern George Washington right there. July 17, 2009. Okay.
That is racist, okay?
That's so racist.
I can't believe
Cultural
Wait a minute.
appropriation.
That's not your
PBD.
wife. Is that your wife?
My wife is in
literally?
another picture.
She's very short.
She's tiny.
She's very, very short, but she's dedicated to the
That's
cause.
so great.
So
I'm with you on that. Let's save America.
But go ahead to your other question with the VP side.
All right, the VP stuff. I get asked that. I don't think President Trump's thinking about VP, honestly. I just had a great conversation with him the other day. I always will take a call from President Trump. I think he's the greatest president in our country's history. And I believe he will go down as one of the greatest political leaders and leaders, frankly, in human history. Yes, I said that.
Why do you think he's the greatest in American history? Above George Washington, above Lincoln, above
They were
JFK?
all
You think
amazing.
Trump is the number one of all time?
Washington was great. Absolutely. Obviously, our first president, and he was a great general who helped us even have this republic. But we're losing this country. I believe we have about a year left. And the person who saves this country, pulls it back out of the flames, is going to go down in my book as the greatest president. Because what good is it if we lose the country and it ends this year? It's like, okay, well, Washington was fantastic. Thank God for Lincoln. Thank
Well,
God.
Lincoln literally saved the country, not, hypothetically.
Yep, but we're losing it now. I believe, and when we
Not
lose
as
it
bad
this
as the
time-
Civil War, though, Kari.
I don't know. I think we could end up going down as not having a republic. They want our Constitution gone. I've never thought I'd saw a day where our First Amendment would be in the crosshairs, and it is. We had our churches shut down. We do not have freedom of speech right now. We have people think we have freedom of speech, but if you only have a little bit of freedom of speech, and some people have a little less, and some people have more, that's not freedom of speech, guys.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we have journalists, I call them journalists, we use that term loosely, who are okay with it. I mean, they should have their journalism card pulled immediately, that they are not fully for the First Amendment, whether you like what someone's saying or you don't. And our government is working with these tech tyrants to take away certain people's right to speak. So, but back to the...
I want to hear the VP answer. Can I get my VP answer with zero interruption?
Okay.
Please, go.
So would I accept that position? Is that what the question is?
Would you, and who else you think is a formidable candidate for VP?
So you think you know Wicks, but do you really? First up, we've got...
I really want to make sure Trump gets his second term. And I think looking, even considering that right now is so off base when we got to make sure he gets that second term. And so people who are kind of like, jonesing to have that happen or jockeying for position are so, in my opinion, it's almost insulting, because it's like, we've got to do everything we can to get him in office. If he gets in office and I have no place in his orbit, as long as he's in office, I'm fine with that. I'm not doing any of this. I don't get asked to speak out in his favor. I don't get told to speak for him. I speak for him as a mother who's really, really concerned about my children's future. In a very selfish way, I'm concerned about my kiddos. And so I speak for him for that. If he called and asked me, I'd have to really consider it. But I'm really looking at a different position right now. And I think when you played that video, which thank you, it's on my Twitter page right now, it insinuated that something might be coming in my world.
So what's next?
We have an opportunity to pick up a Senate seat right now. We have a senator right now, Kyrsten Sinema, who's now in her election mode, Kyrsten Sinema, who's acting like she's independent, which is such an insult to the intelligence of the people of Arizona. We've watched as for 5 years, she's voted in lockstep with Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer on everything. And, even though they named this, the Inflation Reduction Act, I think people are smart enough to realize that it usually means the opposite of whatever the Democrats name these.
Yeah.
It means watch out, hold on, hang on with both hands, because you're not going to be able to afford basic groceries and gas anymore. And so she votes in lockstep with it.
Yeah, Fauci sending grants for them to experiment and kill dogs was the puppy saving grant.
She votes with Biden more often than Bernie Sanders does. And now she's trying to reinvent herself as an independent. She shows up in D.C., she dresses wears a purple wig on the floor of the Senate and go-go boots, and she shows up on the stage at the WEF in Davos, and now she wants to come back and act like she is with the people of Arizona. She didn't give a damn about the border. Now she's on the border. We recognize BS when we see it. And I don't want to see her go back and represent the people. I also don't want to see the guy on the Democrat ticket who is a full-on socialist / Marxist. These are not the values of the people of Arizona. Those two have done nothing to secure our border. They voted to impeach President Trump while they're letting the Biden crime family get away with murder. And so I'm very seriously considering a run. I think the video insinuated there might be something coming up here. And we're going to take back our country, and we're not going to surrender another hill. I don't want to see another Mitt Romney type in D.C. voting against the American people. When we get Trump in office, we got to have people there who are going to help get this agenda to save America passed.
So, Senate, so a couple of the issues.
That's a good point, though. She would be more useful to Trump as another vote in the Senate to pass stuff and get it to his desk than she would be as a mouthpiece VP. That's a very good point.
That's going on, which is, Arizona's border crisis, the amount of people that are coming through on a daily basis. You talked about the cartel earlier. I do want to address the cartel issue. Cartels are significantly profiting from the illegal border crisis. The migrant smuggling economy.
Who wrote that, by the way? Significantly profiting.
Washington Times. Okay, so economy.
They're making a killing on it.
Yeah, at the U.S.-Mexico border tops $20 billion, and the cartels have made at least $2.6 billion in profits over the past 12 months. Just from controlling the routes illegal immigrants use. And on top of that, last year, the Department of Homeland Security estimated that cartels are earning up to $6 billion a year just from human smuggling operation. This is not like a website saying $6 billion a year. This is from Homeland Security. So what are some strategies you're going to have to make sure you protect that, specifically in the state of Arizona?
Well, I talked about my border plan as governor, and that I think every governor should take it. It's out there on the internet. It's called Defend Arizona, but you could easily say Defend Texas, Defend California. That's never going to happen with Newsom. Defend New Mexico. We need strong border governors to do right by the people of this country. That's why people were rooting for me across the country. They said, finally, one governor is going to do something about it. So we really need the governors to step up right now until we can get some, quality individuals put into Congress. And we do have some, by the way. I don't want to say everybody in D.C. is rotten. We're getting some great fighters in there. But I think we need to immediately get President Trump's border plan back. As a journalist, I covered Arizona for 27 years. I'd never seen that border more secure than under President Trump. I mean, he found a way, and he had to do this, mind you, really with one arm tied behind his back, with his own party, people who had an R behind their name, attacking him. They would not let him build the wall. They were fighting. He had to get very creative to get the funding for the 500 plus miles of wall he put up. And I've been to the wall. It works. Now, Joe Biden has opened it up and welded it into an open position. I saw that. And tens of thousands of people are pouring across every week in Arizona. And the drugs are pouring through. And we actually have cartel members crossing the border armed, and they know they own the border. The cartels own the border. They own our state right now. So it's really easy. We just need to get Trump's policies back in at a federal level. And if Joe Biden wants to call them the Biden border plan, I don't care what he calls it. I'm sure Trump doesn't care. Just do it to save our country.
And Kari, I have a really quick question. So I know Vivek yesterday or the day before was on his Twitter, Rob. He was, out there campaigning. He walked into a coffee shop and a lady asked, "What would you do, about the border?" And Vivek said, as the commander in chief, you have the right. You don't have to ask for permission to put our military.
Right.
And mind you, I'm a veteran. Patrick's a veteran. We have people that are just. There's no active crazy wars going on right now. We have soldiers that are literally just waiting around and whatever. Why not use that to protect our border instead of protecting, other people's borders around the country? Would you be able to have that as senator, to have that type of authority to put people on the border?
My actual border plan as governor was going to be to put the National Guard down there.
Good.
And we have men and frankly women, but men would come up to me all the time and say, I fought for my country. If I just got the call to go protect my country right now, I would be there in 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. I would be heading to the border to protect my country. Men and women in this country want our border protected. We don't have a country without a border. And we're sending our sons overseas to fight wars because there's trillions of dollars in these endless wars. That's why, frankly, I believe that's really why they want two reasons why they want to bring Trump down. He's not going to start it. He didn't start any wars. He resisted starting wars. There's trillions of dollars in endless wars. with the military-industrial complex that JFK warned us about. I believe it was Eisenhower warned us about. I mean,
Eisenhower.
On his farewell speech. So there's a lot of money in that. Anybody that speaks up against them ends up gone or destroyed. So you're right, I might end up destroyed. But the other thing is, I don't want to see our sons and daughters fighting these wars overseas when our own country needs help.
I believe some of the stuff you say is a complete winning message. I think you have great messaging. I've told you what I thought doesn't necessarily win. Here's my question to you. I think you're a great surrogate for Trump. I think you have a lot of Kellyanne Conway moxie for sure in you. If you were going to be the VP, I think if you look at the polling, I look at Vegas polls. I don't trust Quinnipiac, Pew, none of it. I look at Vegas polls because that's where the money is. You're in the top 3 in a lot of the list.
Vegas polls said that I was going to win in a landslide.
Well, sometimes Vegas loses, then they have to pay. But the point is, you're at the top of this list. Put on your hypothetical, take off the mama bear hat and put on the VP hat. You're going to be in the Oval Office with President Trump. You've already said you think he's the greatest president of all time. You're in the office. Mm-hmm. You've had the Mike Pences of the world, the Bill Barrs of the world, the General Kellys, people that have been insulated in his circle that have disagreed with him, and they are, for whatever reason, are not so much in the inner circle, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Let's say there's a scenario where you totally disagree with President Trump, and you don't advocate for what he's advocating, but you need to remain loyal in order to kind of keep your position there. How would you handle that nuance? Like, give me some insight to how Vice President Kari Lake would have that difficult conversation with President Trump if you actually disagree with him on something.
Well, first of all, when President Trump says he appreciates loyalty, he doesn't mean loyalty, but you never ever speak against what I want. That's not what loyalty means. Loyalty means he's done a lot for a lot of people. And I will tell you, I understand loyalty. When someone stabs you in the back, you want the people around you that you can trust them. Not that you trust them, you bring them in, and then they turn around and walk out the door and stab you in the back. It's really difficult to have. Then who do you trust if everyone's doing that? So when he says he likes loyalty, he doesn't mean loyalty, but you have to, say everything I say is right. I don't agree with everything the president's done. I agree with very much of it. I think his policies have been exceptional. Sometimes his tone is different than what I would use, but I appreciate that. I like that he's brash, and I think sometimes we need a shaking to wake us up, and we needed that with Trump. Just like with Reagan, we needed a calm, cool optimism and a return toward patriotism and love for country. We needed, with Trump, someone to shake us out of our slumber because we got really lazy and thought our country was on cruise control, and we found out it was, but it was going off a cliff. I've disagreed with him on things before. We talk all the time. I just talked to him the other day. I talked to him 2 days ago. We had a long conversation, and I didn't agree with everything he said, and we kind of went back and forth on something, and it was fun.
How did you approach that? You said, Mr. President, here's how I see things differently. Like, not that I need the actual conversation, but like the tone, the tenure. Like, how do you say, well, hey,
I am now. And you know what? He's a big boy. He can handle it. He wants the truth. I've never seen anybody like him. And I've talked to people who worked in the White House with him. And when there was an issue, a problem, he would bring a whole group of people in and say, okay, everybody, I want your opinion. What do you think we should do, Tom? How should we handle this? Did I get it right? Yes, Tom. Adam, what are your thoughts on this? Patrick, how do you feel? Vincent, what are your thoughts? And then he would make his decision. What the media has said about him is such a lie. It's been an 8-year slander and smear campaign on one man. We've never seen anything like this in politics. So when I do approach people and they tell me they don't like Trump, I usually have a conversation with them, and I find out they've just been believing the media stories.
I actually fully believe that the media has done Trump dirty, no doubt. This is the chicken or the egg thing, fake news. You being a part of the media, you have a very unique insight on this. Why do you think it'll be any different this time around if Trump is the president, knowing what you know about the media?
What knocks people
out
I don't think she thinks it's going to be different
as far as the media is concerned.
But we don't realize.
Well, I think when we get President Trump in office, the people, it is going to be just so obvious that people are with him. And in the last, since really COVID and the 2020 election, I will never forget being on set that night, reading the election results, and a producer getting in my ear, by the way, and say, Brett Baird just called the election for Biden in Arizona. But this time around, the people don't, because of all of that nonsense, the people have turned on the fake news media. And so they don't have it. They don't have the power they once had. And when they're trying to tear Trump down this next go around, it's not going to work. It's going to fall on deaf ears because it'll fall on no ears, not deaf ears. No ears will be listening. And I also believe the press pool at the White House will be comprised of a lot of the alternative media. I mean, maybe Valuetainment will have a reporter representing what's happening at the White House so that the people get the truth. Maybe we'll see, the Gateway Pundit have a seat at the table and journalists who really want to put out the truth. And I just really think this next term of President Trump is going to be so historic. It's going to be a very quick, I don't even know the word, whiplash is maybe the best word, of turning it around. And I think we can do so quickly. I have great faith and hope that our country is going to turn around, but we have to get President Trump in there for that to happen.
I want to talk about a couple of things here with Newsom. Okay, so Newsom, DeSantis and Newsom will debate on Fox in November.
Boy, they're really trying to push that two governors thing. Oh.
Right, but what is that all about, right? So, hey, so Governor DeSantis and Newsom set to participate in a 90-minute televised debate moderated by Fox and Sean Hannity on November 30th. DeSantis expressed his anticipation for this debate, stating, "I look forward to the opportunity to debate Gavin Newsom over our very different visions for the future of the country. Negotiations for debate rules were initially stalled for weeks, but both governors have agreed to a real debate, not a circus." DeSantis hinted that Newsom might become the Democratic nominee in 2024.
Yep.
Presidential election, saying California's leftism is kind of how the Democratic Party operates. And this is happening while Newsom is not a candidate and DeSantis is behind 50-something points or, whatever the numbers are in different polls. How do you read this? As a person, say you're not in politics today, you're in media today, you read this story, you're like, wait a minute. Why would you do so? Why would Newsom do it? Why would DeSantis do it? Newsom's not running. Why are you giving him the platform? Do they know something we don't know that they think it's going to end up being the two of them?
This is what this is the dream, the fantasy of the Uniparty. We'll have two governors of two not border states. Actually, one's a border state. We'll have the two governors, East Coast, West Coast. We've got the strong governor versus the one who destroyed California. This is their fantasy. Okay. And I don't think Joe Biden's going to make it to the finish line. I think they're going to try to toss him out of the vehicle and then have maybe in the convention bring Newsom in. But can you imagine Newsom even thinking that he could run for president? He destroyed California. They have the phrase, "Don't California my Arizona." Have you heard that? Well, they have "Don't California my Florida." "Don't California my
Texas,
my Tennessee, my Iowa," you name it. The guy behind that, the reason that statement exists is Gavin Newsom. He has destroyed California. I was just in LA about a week and a half ago, and we were in literally LA and Pasadena, and I said, this place almost looks like a third world country. The sides of the roads are filthy. There's people living in tents on the side of the road. Buildings look like they haven't seen paint in decades. It is a city that's falling apart. Skid Row it's like an asylum, an insane asylum on the streets, and a horror movie. It's almost as if the people who are on strike in Hollywood have gone over to Skid Row and, created a horror scene, but it's sadly real life. So Gavin Newsom, I believe, will never be president because people don't like what he did to California.
You don't think he'll ever be president?
No. You think he will?
Oh, I think he's the most formidable guy on the left. I think to underestimate him.
Well, maybe he's formidable on the left, and that tells you how bad the left is. The Democrat Party has fallen so low that the guy responsible for turning the Golden State into this, the people in California are, actually, when I go and travel, they're some of the most motivated for change because of him. And so this guy's I have zero respect for that man, what he's done to California. And now, do they think we're dumb? He's going to come out and try to act like he's somewhere in the middle and he's reasonable?
Well, let me read this. So here's two stories.
He's running that way this week.
Yeah. So Newsom vetoes progressive bill on transgender children and self-driving trucks. Yeah. Okay. So issues surprising vetoes that disappointed progressive allies, including a rejection of a bill Assembly Bill 957, advocating consideration of a child's gender identity in custody disputes. Newsom's veto cited concerns about government dictating legal standards and noted that courts already considered parents' handling of gender identity dealing a blow to LGBTQ activists. Newsom's also vetoed a bill mandating human drivers and self-driving trucks, a priority for labor groups. Fearing automation economic impact, the governor defended his decision by arguing that regulatory agencies were better equipped to oversee this emerging technology despite labor concerns. Tom made a very good point at the beginning of the podcast before we were going live, saying these are all signs of a guy that's preparing for a 2024 election, and he wants to be seen more as center.
Well, I hope the American people don't lose their memory of what happened during COVID when that man destroyed. That was really the final nail in the coffin for California. These businesses, they lost, I forget the astronomical percentage of restaurants, little mom and pop shops, restaurants were closed down for good. What they did to our children, masking them up forever. They shut the beaches down. Remember when they poured sand on the skate park? You couldn't surf because the waves might give you COVID. I mean, what's going to give you COVID? A shark? A dolphin?
One restaurant was open. The French Laundry was open.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. That incredibly, I'm sure it's great food. It's incredibly expensive. And he was sitting there, I believe, without a mask on.
Yeah, weird.
These hypocrites. And I hope the American people, it's going to be reliant on us moms out there. If you've got moms watching right now, we cannot forget this stuff that they did to us. We can't let them, we can't have amnesia and go, well, he's going to be great. He's a young guy. No, we can't let that happen. I think that's who Trump will be running against, actually, is Newsom. I think they'll find a way to put him in. Biden's going to get his, butt handed to him.
Vinny, do you want to read the Senator Bob Menendez story on what happened with this guy? Very interesting story.
I think they want to run Gavin Newsom against Trump, but how are they going to get him past Kamala? How are they going to try to maintain the black vote and bypass their ethnicity champion? That's why she's VP right now. She's black and a female. So they think they're going to jump some good-haired white boy over the black female, and that's going to go over with the black voter? It's not. It'll be another reason that the black vote switches to Trump. Because I think that's what's going to save America. I've said it before, we'll say it again. Black people, we need you to save America. Vote Trump, please.
First page 2, right off the bat, it's right there. If you go to the top, open it up, it's the first story right there. Right there, if you open it up on page 2, go one more, page 3, right there, top story.
Okay, so...
you know what story this is.
This guy's amazing. He's a Democrat, so he's going to get away with whatever he gets.
Wait, can I say something really quick? Because on that face-off between DeSantis, let us not forget that DeSantis also shut the beaches down. DeSantis took a page out of Gavin Newsom's playbook. Despite what he says, he shut the beaches down. He did force vaccines. He did force face masks on our kids. So he tries to act like he was perfect. And Florida was open.
DeSantis forced vaccines on kids?
He forced vaccines on people, on workers. He forced face masks on children.
Yes.
And he was for all that. DeSantis was for all of that. So he thinks that we forgot that as well. Now, granted, he didn't continue the misery as long as...
It was a 1 month or a couple weeks on what it was.
It was a little more than that. The beaches were shut down to people.
Right.
So anybody who shuts a beach down, I mean...
So your view of DeSantis, do you see him... how do you see DeSantis? There's a lot of people that love him, but you also made a comment earlier about loyalty and people that come and take what's good from him, Trump, and then they leave and they backstab him. Were you hinting at DeSantis, or were you talking about other people?
He's definitely not loyal. I mean, President Trump made him. President Trump gave him an endorsement when he was polling, I think, at 5% or 6%, maybe 7% at the most, and he immediately shot up like a rocket ship. And because of President Trump, he won. And actually, President Trump saved Florida with an endorsement. Whoever he would have endorsed was going to win. But remember, DeSantis barely beat that drug addict,
Andrew Gillum was his name.
Yeah.
Gillum.
He was like a sex...
Before that, it was Putnam in the primary, and that was Gillum.
But look what's happening in Florida. I've been speaking to people in Florida and asking what they think of the condition here. You can't... Is it 400% the insurance rates have gone up? Something really outrageous for the
cost of living's gone up because everybody's moving here.
Well, a lot
There's
of
no
that is
question
because
about
of
that.
hurricanes.
If you lose your house during a hurricane, you're going to get pennies on the dollar for it. There is an homeowner's insurance crisis here, and the cost of living has gone up a lot here in Florida. I mean, I think it's great. Don't get me wrong. Florida's fantastic, but I don't think that's because Ron DeSantis is governor. I think Florida's a great place to live, and I think it's actually become harder to live in Florida.
As a guy that's a fan of both DeSantis and Trump policies, I can comfortably say DeSantis is the reason why we're here with the policies and the lifestyle of Florida. Don't we love
Florida's
breakers.
great.
We love Florida. We love coming down here and doing what we do here. But he had a lot of the good policies that even the NBA felt safe here. Sports leagues felt safe here. Even AOC partied here. I mean,
That's
even
right.
the left would come here to party. The policies are effective policy. But let me go a little bit deeper with you. Just curious. So say Trump never endorses him when he's at 5, 6, 7%. Say there's no endorsement like that at all. Who is Governor DeSantis today? There is no endorsement. Who's Governor DeSantis today?
I don't think he would have won. I really don't believe he would have won, and I think he would probably be trying to get back into Congress. But the thing I have a problem with is as somebody running for governor. At the same time, he was running, and he knew before he ran that he was going to run for president. He didn't tell people that. I mean, few people knew, but he didn't tell the voter that, and he asked them to reelect him, and immediately, and people did. Trump supporters helped reelect him, and he won. And then immediately he starts running against Trump, the people, and then he took the money that many Trump supporters donated
$83 million,
him.
yeah.
Yes, and put it over into his PAC.
Whatever it could have been 82, 83 million. It's a lot of money it was from that PAC.
Anybody who makes a political judgment like that, when he could have walked in and been the president in 28, with hands down, it was going to be Trump and then a DeSantis term, maybe 2 terms as president. And so he made the political calculation to go up against a political giant like Trump. That tells me that's not a very smart person.
Who do you think told him? Okay, because I asked this question to Pat once. Who do you think was behind because like you just said, if DeSantis, because he rocked as a governor, that's why Pat said, what I'm saying, we're all here. If he just, said, okay, listen, I'm going to stay in the wings. I'll be your VP. I'll watch you. I'll learn how to speak publicly. Because mind you, when he speaks in Florida, Kari, small little audiences, he goes after everybody, and he's the Ron DeSantis that we know. On the big stage, it's almost like he doesn't know what he's doing because he's not used to that type of.
That's a really great thing to look at now because everything was very controlled.
Yes,
you saw, and that's why people fell in love with him. So like, oh, he did a great job in that press conference. He really got him, but you really didn't see him. Did he ever do your show and speak for 2 hours live with you?
Who's this?
Ron DeSantis.
Oh, no, he did.
Did you ever see him go on Timcast for 3 hours and just get anything thrown at him?
They won't do that. They've rescheduled God knows how many times already. Yeah, every time it's like, we're going to do it, and it's like something is coming
I'm
up.
starting to really believe after being peppered with the craziest questions on a variety of different media platforms that if you're going to run for office, if you can't hold your own in a 3-hour podcast.
I agree. Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's when it's hard to hold up if you've kind of got your consultant points and they're drilled into your head.
Just to be fair, Trump's also not done a 3-hour podcast. So if Trump is open to a 3-hour podcast, I know a couple people that would like to entertain.
I will tell him he should do.
You may want to tell him that because he hasn't done one either.
Even an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Like this is a 2-hour podcast.
I've seen a lot.
And I respect the hell out of you for sitting here taking questions left, right, center. That's something that Ron DeSantis has not done yet.
Yeah,
from what we've
think
seen.
Trump has done some. I mean, he did the Tucker interview that was pretty long, 3 hours maybe. He is a kind of a busy guy.
Trump will go on CNN with Caitlin Collins and take tough questions. Respect to him.
To say with Trump, look, this is. I know it's going to sound weird what I'm about to say. This is why just last week I had a very big debate here, discussion here. We had 2 Muslims sitting here. We had 2 Christians sitting here. Okay, and it was very heated. It went all over the place. A lot of people, saying things from the conservative Muslim side, from the Christian side. It was all over Twitter. Okay, there's been a few hundred reaction videos to this podcast that we had. I want to sit down and have both sides talk to one another, right? I got a lot of respect for Newsom and Trump for one thing. Newsom will go sit down with Hannity and have a discussion. He has no problem with that. Newsom's not afraid. I don't agree with his policy.
You mean for this debate, he'll sit down with him?
He already did. He's done 2 with Hannity already. I think he's done a couple of them with Hannity.
You have to ask what that news outlet whether it be Fox or whatever, is trying to accomplish. They are trying to set the stage. They are trying to set the stage in the mind of America that these should be the two candidates.
But you know why I'm saying that?
I don't disagree with you, but Sean Hannity pushed him, and you can't say that Sean Hannity isn't a Trump fan. Can't say that.
Newsom held his own. It was very impressive on the way he did it.
Believe me, this outlet that you're talking about wants Newsom on the ballot. They want this setup. And you have to realize when they're, even the people they allow on, who are they allowing on?
I don't disagree either, because I think, I will tell you, I want to see Lakers Celtics in the finals. I don't want to see no Milwaukee playing Phoenix. I don't want to see that. I want to
Giannis is going to be very
I'm not
upset
against
with you now,
Giannis. I
PBD.
think Giannis needs to go to a bigger market like New York. I think he will next couple of years. But going back to this here with what we're talking about. So I think the reason why I respect Trump is because he'll say he's a gamer anywhere. Newsom, I don't know if Newsom's done a long. I'd love to have.
Real quick, just shout out to everybody tapping in on Rumble. I appreciate you for tuning into the stream, watching this very good interview with Kari Lake. If you could hit the thumbs up for me, that helps. Get involved in the chat. Let me know where you guys are watching from. Give me your insight. Let me know what you're thinking. That's why we go live. I want to hear from you guys. So get involved in the stream, so to speak. Let me know what you're thinking. And I'm currently debating if we just stream all night and watch the Republican debate as well. So if you guys would like to hang out and watch the Republican debate tonight on the stream, I'm considering it. The top of Rumble, I just seen a pop-up that the second Republican debate is at 7 o'clock. So we might tune into that on the channel if you guys are down. Let me know. I got to not work tonight if we're going to do that. So let me know if you guys are interested.
Newsom here for a couple hours and talk to him. I think Newsom has enough brass to do it. So DeSantis hasn't shown he can do that. I think Fox probably wants a DeSantis Newsom for one reason. They can't stand Trump from the, Paul Ryan side and Karl Rove side you were talking about earlier. And I think it's going to be a better matchup of Newsom, DeSantis, future, young. That's kind of how they see it. They just don't like Trump over there. Not everybody. Some of them don't.
I think they probably would rather have Newsom than Trump. A lot of these people in the media.
As a president. Well, look at some of these never Trumpers who were so-called Republicans who endorsed Biden.
Yeah.
Cindy McCain, for starters, endorsed Biden. Oh, you know who we're having on next week? You'll love this. Who's on here next week, Rob? Is it not next week? This Friday. No, this Friday is Schmidt from
Steve Schmidt.
Steve Schmidt from you know who he is. That's going to be a wonderful
Steve Schmidt is the Lincoln Project.
Yeah, we're going to have a great conversation with them. So we're going to see what he has to say. But
the Lincoln Project.
Yes, the Lincoln Project, folks. So do you want to read that Bob Menendez story?
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. Trust me, it's fine. So Senator Bob Menendez faces increasing calls from Democrats to resign following his indictment in a bribery scheme. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy and Democratic lawmakers from the state, including Reps Mickey Sherrill, Bill Pascrell Jr., and Josh Gottheimer, have called for his resignation. Despite the calls for resignation, Menendez has asserted his innocence, labeling the charges as false and attributing them to active smear campaign of anonymous sources and innuendos. He has refused to step down because he's a Democrat from the Senate position, stating, "I am not going anywhere."
To be fair, that thing doesn't say everything, because the Manhattan U.S. Attorney Office charged him with accepting cash and gold bars.
Yeah.
And there's text messages.
And a car and a Mercedes. And they gave him
Isn't he saying, I was just taking money out and I was holding it, it was kind of storing it and hiding it in my closet.
Yeah, 100%. I still love
a lot of that.
I'm not
was
going
because
sewing it into the jacket.
Yeah.
Did you hear his reasoning though?
Yeah, it's really not innuendos.
He said that a lot of it was because his lineage came from Cuba, and that they understand that sometimes you need to turn these things into things you can run away with because they fled Cuba 60 years ago. I mean, that he's going the full.
If you buy that,
rap.
I think that guy's got to go into sales.
Yeah,
exactly.
He's
the
got to go into
indictment
sales.
alleges that Menendez accepted cash, gold bars, and other benefits in exchange for using his office to benefit businessmen and the Egyptian government. That's probably where the gold is coming.
So all these people are selling out America. In Egypt, they're selling us out to the CCP with the Bidens and that crime family.
Politicians
I think
are for
everybody
sale.
in DC, I think
That's
Trump
the
just
problem.
put this out on his Truth
They
Social.
are for
Everybody
sale.
who's guilty or done something like this, they all should step down. And I don't think it's just Menendez and Biden.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them on both sides.
I think the majority, probably the majority in D.C. have done something unethical like this. And this goes beyond unethical. This is just criminal if he is convicted.
See, it's messages.
That's how corrupt it is.
I don't disagree that it is. By the way, a lady whose husband we hung out with this last weekend. So we are in, this is a crazy story. So we're in New York, okay? Mm-hmm. I took 34 of my guys, my friends, my executives, and I said, let's go to New York. We went to 11 Madison. We had dinner there. We won't comment on that. We had dinner at 11 Madison.
I had a lot of plans.
And then we had, afterwards, we were trying to go to a Yankees game the next day, and it rained out. So we said, listen, guys, I had my kids with me. My son was turning 10 years old, Dylan.
Oh, my gosh.
Happy birthday, Dylan. He was turning 10 years old. So I got my 11, 10, my 7-year-old daughter with me. We got to show them a good time. So we go to this place called Chelsea Piers. Phenomenal place. We go way early, 10 o'clock in the morning. The place is like wide open.
There.
Nobody's there. We get a bunch of bowling lanes. And we start having conversations on who would you like to have on the podcast. Vinny's talking to me. The door is behind me. Vinny's here. Tom is here. Sam is here. Kim is here. And you're saying, who would you want to have? And
I look at Pat, and mind you, Kari, I'm worried. When he says nobody's there, I'm talking about they're just setting up, getting ready to
literally
shoot.
Nobody's there.
Nobody is there. And by the way, he just randomly goes, hey, kids, where do you want to chill? It was a last-minute decision because of the game. Pat's back to the door, like he said, and then I just hear kind of talking. I just hear, hey, Vinny, who do you think would be a good interview for me to interview? And I go, right up, I didn't even hesitate here. I go, Putin. Questions. Why? I go, because he's such a polarizing individual. I would love to hear that type of conversation from him because Pat would push him with questions. He's a very interesting guy. I go, Pat, who would you want? And I'm not joking, okay? This is 100% God's my witness.
Tom is standing right next.
Tom is right there. Pat goes, you know what? I wouldn't be interested in interviewing Hillary, but you know what? Bill Clinton. I'm not even joking, Kari. I just see a white hair guy walk in.
3 seconds.
And it's Bill Clinton. And I go, Pat, mind me for my language. I go, Pat, Bill Clinton just walked into the effing door.
No.
And Pat goes, what the hell is going on?
Very weird. So Bill walks in.
Then what?
Bill walks in. So
tell me he's going to be on
the Secret Service guy. The Secret Service guy walks up. And I go up to him. I said,
too weird of a coincidence.
How weird is that?
Too weird.
And then it's weird because I go, Bill, what are you doing in a bowling alley? He goes, do you know who my wife is? He goes, anything to get away.
He did not.
No. He goes, Hillary's in New York. And I just had to go anywhere. But he's by himself. And I guess there's a private party. There's like a private party for some kids, which is great. Like 40, they were having a private party. And he walks in and talks to an older couple, which I guess he knew. And then, mind you, Kari, Secret Service 5 or 6, he's just walking around.
By the way, Kari, for 2 hours, he went, no joke. He probably shook, by the time it was done, there was a bunch of people there. He probably shook 150 people.
Easy.
He understands retail.
He understands retail politics. He's so smooth. So Hillary, his wife, okay, very different. Sweetheart, right? Hillary Clinton. Okay?
Most likable candidate.
She warns of potential Russian election interference in 2024, and she said he'll do it again. Can you please play that clip and let's get a reaction? Yes, exactly what it is. If you can play that, Rob, I thought you had the clip prepared already. You had it up. No, he had it up already.
Isn't Rob? He's over there working his butt off.
Rob,
he's a good kid. Oh, this is
that's the one.
The ginger swindler.
Oh, but Rob, that's 3 minutes and 5 seconds.
Saki.
One of these you pulled up earlier, it had the subtitles in Russian.
I saw that.
They were. It's when you walked in.
Is that the one?
I think it's the one on the bottom, the less than.
This one's 59 seconds.
Okay, press it. Let's see what she says. She's pretty long-winded, but
Vladimir
let's see.
Putin has obviously your friend
this
and
will be
mine.
fair. We've got one leftist
he has
interviewing another.
intervened in our election in the past.
Right.
It's not something, as you experienced firsthand, it's not something we talk about a lot. Do you fear that that is something that could be happening for 2024? And do you think we should be talking about it more?
Well, I think we should be talking about it more because I don't think, despite all of the deniers, there's any doubt that he interfered in our election or that he has interfered in many ways in the internal affairs of other countries, funding political parties, funding, political candidates, buying off, government officials in different places. So that is his opus, his opus operandi in the sense that he
good one.
hates democracy. He particularly hates the West, and he especially hates
opus
us.
operandi?
And
What the fuck does that
he
mean?
has determined that he can do two things. Vladimir Putin.
Do you guys understand what's happening? The gall of this woman who was literally behind the Russian collusion hoax about cheating is over here warning us that Putin is gonna do it this time. Like, are you kidding me? Like, is that real life?
We're stuck in some sort of a loop right now. This whole country, it's like they're trying, and the gaslighting has been so off the charts, and now they're going to go completely with gaslighting like this, and it's just a repeat of what they've been doing for the past 8 years. Oh, there he is. Is that Bill?
Where is he? There, look at him. Look at him. Look at that shirt. That shirt just says, "I'm going to a bowling alley without my wife." Look at that thing.
It was a fish shirt with a blue blazer and a Ukraine flag.
No, he had a Ukraine flag on?
He had a Ukraine flag.
He did. Yeah, he did. And I didn't have my American flag
But
on.
the smoothness of him,
Look at
of
him,
networking, what he's wearing, just like an average Joe, and connecting with everybody.
Okay, but we're not answering the glaring question. Did you ask him to be on the show?
No, I did not. No, but the guy that was with him, which was very good to hear, his Secret Service guy was a fan of the show. He watched the podcast. He says, "Mr. David, I watched the podcast. You can approach President Clinton and talk to him." And we had a very good conversation together. My wife went to the same elementary school as he did. Obviously not the same year. But
Thank you.
Yes, that's an
Jen grew up in Arkansas.
And an
She grew up
80-year-old
in
wife.
Hope, Arkansas. They went to
Interesting.
That's hilarious.
your old wife would be. Here's my wife. She's in a wheelchair, Kari. I want you to meet. So, anyways, this is another joke of another Kari. But anyway, so my wife and him went to the same school. So I said, hey, and he said, oh wow, yeah. I said, and I also went to your house, and I noticed you were recognized as the cutest baby. You won an award in 2000 and whatever the year was. Yeah, when he was 2 years old. But in the city, we go to this funeral house. Okay. And I go to this funeral home. We're there for a funeral. My wife's dad passed away. So we're there for that reason.
Little Rock.
Arkansas. Hope, Arkansas.
Oh, Hope.
So we go to this place and I say, so tell me, how is Bill Clinton? What did you guys know about him in the city? And he says, well, what do you mean? I said, is he the womanizer that people claim he is? He says, of course he is. I said, did you guys have a problem with that? He says, you don't know who he's married to? He says, his wife? He says, everybody here loves Bill. He said, well, let me tell you about his wife. He says, one time, Bill's uncle dies, and he's up there giving a speech. There's a bunch of people there. He says, and Hillary sealed to the corner. She wanted to sit away from everybody. Bill's mingling with everybody. I think Bette Midler's there or something like that. And he says afterwards, they're going to, the plot to do the final, ceremony. And she says, we're there with Secret Service, security, everybody. She says, don't effing expect me to go there. I'm going back home. This is all I'm going to do here. You go handle the rest.
Wow.
I got to go home. Says she was the meanest person we ever met.
Hillary?
Obviously, it's surprising to hear a story like that. 'Cause I'm sure that's
like
never
somebody that smiles a lot.
right.
Yeah.
But we don't know the whole story. There's a lot of different stories behind it. Bill is a guy I would love to have a long form conversation with. I would also like to talk to her. I just don't think she'll ever do it.
Never.
No, I think she would only do a long conversation with someone where there were parameters set, and you are going to ask about this, and they're on the same team. And I think a lot of these people in the media are part of the kind of deep state uniparty. They're in on it all. So if you would be willing to do that, I mean, like I came on the show, I don't think that we had any parameters.
No, zero.
I usually tell people I'll answer anything. May not be the answer you want, but I'll answer anything. And I don't believe that Hillary would do that. If you wanted to start asking her about the 30,000 emails that are missing, bleach spitting her
the
phones,
dead bodies all around her.
If you want to start asking her about all more difficult questions, money and where the money went. And
do you think it's weird that 25 people that have killed themselves? Do you think that's weird?
My interest was more hair product, is what I wanted to ask about. I wanted to ask about hair product,
or
designer,
the suicide rate of friends and employees that just can't handle leaving and not working with them, so they They killed themselves.
The question is,
believe me, when she starts talking about you, and she did start talking about me toward the end, they were worried with the Katie Hobbs thing. Bill Clinton was talking about Hobbs, and Hillary started talking about me. They had Eric Holder come in and campaign, and Obama came in and campaign, which was the funniest, by the way. He said he was going after me, saying, "Oh, she looks good on TV, and she's good on television, and she can speak well." But Katie Hobbs chooses not to look good. She could look good, but she chooses not.
I'm thinking, that clip.
Is he actually trying to give me an endorsement?
Yeah.
But when Hillary Clinton starts talking about you, because of this history, you do tense up a little bit.
Of course.
You got to double down on
like,
security.
Oh boy, let's check the brakes on the car. I'm in perfect health. I'm not suicidal. You
said
I just
that
want
in an
the
interview.
world
She
to
actually
know
did.
that.
Yeah. So let's go to the next story. Ted Cruz says Dems could discard Biden for Michelle Obama in 2024, which, by the way, this was just a couple days ago, September 23rd. It's not a story of a year ago or something like that. So, some people have alluded to this, and you said you were with Roger Stone last night. Roger fully believes Michelle Obama is going to be the one that's going to come in, and he said this to us multiple times. So Texas Senator Ted Cruz has raised the possibility that Democrat kingmakers might opt to replace President Joe Biden for Michelle Obama before 2024. I'm emphasizing Biden's age. Cruz stated on his podcast, Verdict with Cruz, that he views this scenario as a very serious danger. Cruz outlined reasons why Michelle Obama could be an appealing choice for Democrats, including her popularity amongst African-American women.
Side?
He suggested
Is
that
it
she
still
could
Hillary
be
and
parachuted
Obama?
into the 2024 national DNC scheduled for August 2024 in her hometown of Chicago as a way to avoid a divisive primary, potentially with the assistance of superdelegates.
As a way to avoid a divisive primary. No, as a way to avoid the vetting of candidates. Our candidates should be vetted. The whole process is about vetting a candidate. And so, parachuting in is a really convenient way of not being asked tough questions, of allowing the media to just, go gaga over somebody. I would need, as a voter, and I hope that Democrat voters would want more vetting.
They don't.
On where do you stand on the issues? And there's been a lot of corruption from the Obama campaign was very corrupt. And there needs to be some questions asked of that. But the media will never ask tough questions of Obama. You saw the interview that Tucker did, the man who made accusations.
Larry Sinclair.
Yes, many years ago. It was out there. He took a lie detector test. He spoke out about his sexual relationship with Obama.
Mm-hmm. And drug use.
And drug use, yeah. And the media never covered it. They knew about it and they never covered it. They were told, if you cover this, you will never have an interview with Obama. You will be iced. And the media never covered that. Can you imagine if that came out credible? They take sources that aren't credible, that are just plain lying. It's really obvious. The facts don't back them up. And with Trump, and they run all kinds of crazy stories. But that never got play. So I don't like the idea of someone parachuting in, but I still don't think it'll work. By the time the election rolls around, the way I see it, the American people are going to be so tired of the Democrat policies. And if they think it's going to be any different under Gavin Newsom or Michelle Obama than it is under Biden.
Who do you think is more formidable and more likely?
I kind of think that more formidable, meaning, I don't
More of a chance of winning. Michelle or Newsom has more of a chance of winning. And who's more likely of actually being the one in 2024?
I don't think either of them have a chance of winning. But as far as who would the Democrats pick, I think maybe Newsom.
Over Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of racist, isn't it?
No.
So funny.
I'm not sure. I've never really heard her speak on the issues. So I don't know that, other than, very controlled situation.
Why do you think people are so obsessed with
I'm just throwing
Michelle?
a dart here at the dartboard.
Michelle has never once indicated that she's going to run. I have friends on both sides of the aisle, friends that are on the left who are like, dude, there's no chance he's running. Why does it still continue to be propagated by even the Ted Cruzes of the world? Or
maybe
even the
if
DNC?
It's really bad and they're thinking, oh my gosh, Trump's going to win by such a landslide, they will put Michelle in because it would be harder, I think, because of this. You just said I'm racist for saying that it might be Newsom.
No, what I'm saying is that's what they would say. They would say.
And I'm throwing that out.
He was joking.
No, I know you were joking, but there is that sense of you can't ask tough questions because if you are a journalist, you might be accused of being racist. So maybe if they're really in dire situation, they might put Michelle.
So it'd be Michelle and Kamala.
What? Oh my God! I would 100%.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Double.
Because think about it. It'd be
black
another
female?
Obama. Her name.
Highly unlikely.
Just the name Obama, and let's not
and Kamala.
Obama and Kamala, and don't forget, bro.
0%
hold
chance.
on, Michelle Obama speaks in front of arenas. I'm telling you right now, if they just came out and they said, "Hey, but Michelle's running," trust me, bro, she would get the votes. But Kari, quick question, because we did it really fast, Pat. Tucker did have Larry Sinclair. We were thinking about motive, and Pat made a great question of why would Tucker, out of all times, of all people, because he could interview anybody from Elon Musk to whatever, why bring the guy that accused him, mind you, like you said it, signed an affidavit, had to lie detector test twice that said that all these things happened. Do you think it was a move on Tucker because he hates the establishment so much, Kari, that he was like, you know what? Just to let you guys know, I'm having this guy come up to just in case Michelle does run, you're gonna have to address this, because they were hiding. Michelle left the country and Barack was MIA. They couldn't even reach these people.
Left never asked any questions of them after that.
Is that weird?
Didn't even cover it. They just attacked Tucker.
Yeah, exactly. So do you think it's like a move on Tucker just because Tucker has kind of that power to be like, okay, I just did this because if she does announce,
there's more of this coming.
You're gonna have to talk and address this guy, because that guy is not going anywhere.
Could be. That could be
right.
That they're seeing that the Obamas might make a repeat appearance.
Yep. So now you have a little bit of ammunition, because as we all know, Tucker is not established.
Well, and the interesting thing this time around is last time they had the media, just as I said, when I went and did the interview with Obama, which I thought was a more tough interview, because most people don't ever ask him a question that he wouldn't want. Most people in journalism, the entire press pool was so enamored with Obama. They didn't ask tough questions of him, nothing. And then a year later, when I was there at the Trump White House, it was like everybody was on attack mode. They were on steroid attack mode. It was just the strangest thing. Never ask a tough question of the Obamas, but this time around, that media exists. However, there's also the alternative media, and if they think those questions aren't going to be answered this time around, I think they have another thing coming.
Yeah, and I love the comparison. Have you seen the White House press briefings now with Karine Jean-Pierre? It's quiet. Peter Doocy asks one question, she shuts him down, they move on. Donald Trump, when they had like Sarah Huckabee in there, it was a shit show. Sorry for my language. It was insanity. People yelling, Jim Acosta, this person running to the front. Facts. It was insane. Now they all know, don't ask crazy questions. It's insane how to see.
Not even crazy, just questions that are going to be pointed and getting to the truth.
Not actually crazy.
Because I think Peter Doocy's questions are all legitimate.
100%.
It's not actually crazy. Obviously, they act one way when it's their team versus when it's not their team.
100%.
I think he does a great job.
He does a great.
The actual problem, though, is that the media as a conglomerate has a team. That's the problem.
Job, Pep, but here's the thing, Kari. Some would say, okay, he asked these questions, and then what? Nothing ever happens. Just the other day, he goes, Karine, what do you call 10,000 illegals coming over the border? And she answers with a question, and she says, what do you call the GOP? He goes, no. And she goes, oh, no, you're not answering. I try to answer, and she leaves. And this is what bothers me, Pat. That happens. She doesn't answer the question, Kari. Not one of these so-called reporters goes, no, hold on a second. I want you to answer that question. What do you call 10,000 people coming here, 13,000 a day? It's an invasion. That's what it is. They're coming to invade us, and nobody holds their foot to the fire. So Peter Doocy, he asks the questions, nothing happens. Zero.
Because the group that controls who goes into the White House, I forget the name of the actual group, they won't let serious journalists in. They only want people who are going to have the same ideology, and they have to let Fox in. And thank God Peter Doocy asked the tough questions, but that's about the only. There's a couple. There's that. I don't remember his name. He's a reporter, but I believe from Africa, and he has tough questions.
Oh yeah, they kicked him out once. They took his credentials, and then I guess they brought him back in. Oh yeah, she hated
Simon,
him.
right?
Simon. Yeah, Simon.
Boy, you guys are quick.
Yeah, I think they kicked him out.
Rob,
did he get his credentials back? Because I'm pretty sure, Kari, they kicked him out because he would talk over her and not let her just blow over him. He's like, no, answer the question.
Well, listen, Kari, this has been fantastic having you on. I know you have a book that just came out, Unafraid. We're going to put the link below for people to go order the book. But didn't you also start a podcast? Aren't you? You got something going on with
I do. Yeah.
Tell us about it.
So it's a weekly, and I actually did a couple of interviews while I was in town here.
Very cool.
Which will be coming up. It's just a weekly. I want to I love being a journalist. I love asking questions. I love hearing people's stories. So it's just a way to continue to do that. And, a once a week show is a lot easier to do than a daily, as you all know. So that's, you can see that. And I put it out everywhere. I put it on my Rumble page. I put it on Twitter. So the next one's coming up. I'm not sure which one we're going to be dropping next, but it's sure to be exciting. I have a Roseanne interview that I just did. I talked to Eric Trump, Roger Stone. I got a few more things up my sleeve.
Nice.
So
very cool. Well, we're going to put the link below to the website as well. Probably the best place to follow. It'll drive to everything else. And make sure to order the book. Kari, keep up the fight. It's great seeing you everywhere. You're a super necessary voice.
Thank you. And thank you for having the courage to talk about these issues that are taboo now. They're really important. I want our country to be strong. I want our future to be strong. And without fighting some of these fights that are difficult, then we won't have a country. So thank you all.
Anytime. We're with you. So I believe Wednesday's the debate. Rob, Wednesday night will be the debate at the Ronald Reagan Library. You will be there.
Yes.
We may be there. And then Thursday morning, we may do a reaction podcast here. We'll let the audience know what's going to be happening, but that's going to be happening this weekend. And Friday, we definitely have a podcast or two. I think Marianne Williamson's also going to be here on Friday. We got everybody coming, left, right, middle, center, Muslim, Christian, doesn't matter who we want to talk to, right? That's what we want to do. That's what I think media should be all about. Have a great one, everybody. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Take care. Bye-bye, bye-bye.
Bye-bye, bye-bye. Patrick Bet David. All right, guys. So there it is. Kari Lake interview with Patrick Bet David. My thoughts on it. I think I have a lot of respect for Patrick Bet David. He has a valuable company over there at Valuetainment, and they are doing media the right way. He has people from the left on, people from the right on. He's not afraid to ask the tough questions. He's not afraid to go back and forth with people. So we respect what he does over there. Was a great interview. Strong hint that she's probably running for Senate. Strong hint that she's going to run for Senate, which could be a good thing. Because like I said, Trump is going to need allies in the Senate if they're going to be able to do the Make America Great Again agenda and actually push it through to be successful. So, great interview. Interesting stuff. We enjoyed it. But for everybody who tapped in today, I appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by. If you can give me a thumbs up, I would appreciate it. Hit the follow, hit the join if you can. Do what you can to help out. I'm trying to make a go at this, and your support's needed. So if all you can do is like or share or comment, then that's appreciated. If you can do more, we'd appreciate that as well. But we're going to get out of here. Have a good one. Make sure you watch the debate, even if it's not here. But we may come back and do it. I'm just not 100% sure. All right, guys. Take care. Later, bye.